Good morning and welcome to GM Tips. This is GM Rick. Sorry it's been a while, but Windows had its issue with my Logitech camera. Now we've got that all cleared up, so life is better. Um, this morning, my topic is a revisit to plots, adventure hooks, and other things that, like dramatic story statements that draw your characters into your campaign. And there's a couple things that I want to hit early on before we get into what these actual plot types are, because I'm going to give you guys a list of different things and ideas. I know for GMs, nothing's better when you have a creative well you can go to, and especially when it's unique each time. And that leads to my first point in no-nos that we can do as GMs, or things that we need to consider as GMs and DMs when going to the well of ideas. Number one, and most important, is don't go to the well of the same idea and plot hook time and time and time again. I don't care how much your players like it. I don't care how cool of an idea it was. I don't care how wonderful of a campaign it is. Nothing burns a GM, DM, or other type of person running a campaign and storytelling more than going to that same well, that same location, that same city time and again. Now, don't get me wrong, there are great cities that you can go to. Pathfinder has a great one called Sand Point that they start a lot of players out in Variscia. There are other ones like in D&D, like Hamlet. Hamlet was the age-old, end-old. Or going to the Sword Coast and going to Daggerdale, or going into Waterdeep, or going into Baldur's Gate. Those were all cool places to start and had a lot of rich history involved of them. But sometimes going to the same place again and again and again burns you and your players out. It loses its creative touch. It loses its luster. It loses its thing that draws the characters in. If you're using the same old plot hooks again and again and again, you got to go beat up this monster. You got to go beat up this bad guy. You got to go throw this bad guy in prison. You got to go kick them out of the plane they're in. It gets old. It really does. You've got to add that new flair to things and quit going to the same well time and time again. The second thing is, as a GM and DM, don't fault your players for surprising you with new ways that their characters or character builds approach a plot or a adventure hook. Sometimes we get mad when our players throw us way off the tracks as GMs and DMs, but we shouldn't. Instead, we should applaud the creativity and allow it to challenge us to really think, what can we do to make this so much greater and so much more of a rich experience by embracing what they brought us? I know for me that it really excites me when my players come up with a rogue that is spun 70 different ways and is not the same character again and again, not the same race, not the same class, build, or a similar build that just gives me the same rehashed character. I love when they go a different route. So it's different archetypes of rogues in Pathfinder, or you can build archetypes in D&D 5e, or in other campaigns like 40, 3.5, or even in some other ones like God, I'm gonna forget on these. Deadlands, or steampunk type adventures, or Tofra, or Tefra, or any of these other games that are unique games. Applaud when they give you something brand new. And nothing grinds my axe more as a GM when a character takes a new class, keeps his race the same, keeps the story feed the same for them, keeps the background kind of similar, goes to a similar realm of deities, uses the same friggin' weapon again and again and again. For me, that's just it grinds. It's like nails on a chalkboard, because you sit there and go, you're just letting go of so much more you could be doing as a player. Now, again, you can't force them a certain way, but you can give them hints, and you can show them that, boy, it just doesn't challenge you as a GM. It really doesn't. And again, you don't necessarily want to penalize them, but you want them to understand that creativity is something to be applauded and rewarded. So keeping that in mind and laying the ground with those ideas right there in mind, let's take a look at some different plots and stories that are really unique stories. And I want to go into some and really build on some of the plots they have here. And in this case, I'm going to use the GM's guide with plots. In Pathfinder, you can use the DM's guide. They have that in there as well. There's many online sites and materials that you can look up for plot hooks and adventure hooks. Again, I don't want to list 50 million of them here. Don't be afraid also to go to podcasts. So people like the Steel Empire or God, there's so many different ones I could take you guys through that are just interesting ones. Rollcasters. Huh, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. I know Basement Heroes. Sorry, guys. Again, as I come into this and I'm thinking of my podcasters, I got to be real careful to make sure I give you one. Rollistas. Rollistas are an interesting one. The Order of the Amber Die. There's a lot of different people and groups that you can watch that'll give you a lot of ideas and different plot twists and how to run things, and you can outline them. I'm going to go to this well, and I'm going to build and expand on each of these ideas and give you some ideas that I think were really great. Before I go here, I want to really give one outstanding campaign that, or actually a top three that were memorable for me. These campaigns were very memorable for me. Number one, an all-rogue campaign. And the plot twist was we were a company of roguish type of player characters. So really you didn't have any lawful goods. You didn't have any real chaotic goods. We were neutral good at best to neutral at worst. And the great part about our group, we worship deities that were roguish and kind of luck-based. The GM really took it an interesting way because what we had to do is we had to go and steal parts of major artifact items in order to put together a key that would stop and close this necromantic invasion of a world. And at the same time, we had to figure out who was doing it and yet not get drawn into combat all the time because, again, we weren't the most combat-oriented party. And I remember, and for me, the coolest part for me is I had to think outside the box because even though I was trying to sneak in and save people, I would run into creatures that were way more powerful than me. And so you saw my rogue Colin of the Blade jumping out of windows to save himself many times. And it was really cool because it taught me how to sneak around, how to be mindful of different types of traps and things that would come up, to utilize my fellow players and their strengths to help us to achieve our goal, even though we all had our own little rogue tilts and lusts and desires. We were really challenged to work together. And the plot was so cool because it was ever shifting every week. We never knew quite who was the bad guy behind it until the very end. And for us, that was one of the coolest plots that laid out for us. So in saying that, when your players are building their characters, give them a type of theme the campaign is going to be like. It'll be a steampunk campaign. It's going to be a more roguish campaign. It's going to be a more divine and devout deity type of campaign. It's going to be more of an arcane or fey-oriented campaign. You don't have to give away your plot, and don't when you're talking to your players and allowing them to design their characters for it. But give them subtle hints that help them to come up with a build that you know is going to be really cool for them. You want them to enjoy it. So that was the first one. The second one was the Undead campaign. And the whole plot behind it was there was a secret society that was devoted to changing the world to being undead. And they were plotting to resurrect a forgotten, dead, or lost lich that was trying to conquer the world. And they wanted to bring back some version of him by converting a living ancestor of his into a form of him. And we had to, along the way, try to thwart their efforts because they were trying to get little pieces of the puzzle to make this happen. And we were always running kind of to catch up, and I was GMing it. So really cool for my players because it had different horror themes throughout it. So you had Frankenstein, you had the Wolfman, you had all these different types of themes that were pulled in, and they all blended together in the overall theme, but each time was way different, and so they had to think very differently. They went from haunts and haunted type of ghosts to werewolves and wares to a city of vampires where they had to work with the vampires instead of thwart the vampires because they were their allies against this undead lich and this society. So there was a lot of cool twists in this, and I put other twists along with it in side adventures that took them a little off the plot, but allowed them to play out some of their other uh, themes that they wanted to play out with their players. So keep that in mind. You really can look at those type of things and having a central undead society that is trying to create the world to a perfect order of undeath. That's kind of a cool plot twist, and it goes on and on and on and keeps giving. And there's a lot of themes, plots, and adventure hooks that pull the character into that and continue to have them fight and thwart that society. My third and most favorite is a secret order of kind of like the Dutch East Indies or West Indies group, where they, in Pirates of the Caribbean, where they were trying to rule commerce and do so by whatever means was necessary, ethical or unethical. And the characters were either freebooters or they were other type of consortiums trying to free up trade for the average man instead of being just crushed under the big wheel of this consortium and its plots and twists. And the great part about a consortium group like that is that they don't always agree with one another. Their overall goal is similar, but they have their own goals. And so keep that in mind when you're doing these. So those are my top three. Now, let's go to some other ones that may be of interest for you. And these are some cool ideas. One is called Greed and Glory. PCs hear about a dungeon nearby and how no one dares to enter it. That's a pretty much given, gone to the same well one. But keep in mind that if you're running other type of campaigns, it's not a bad one to have from time to time. And again, you don't always have to do like a Tomb of Horrors or a Rapanathuk or some of these other ones where it's just this grinding, or the Emerald Spire in Pathfinder where it's this grinding, grueling dungeon of peril. You can have different twists to it. Like, for instance, yes, there's untold riches, but there's also some items that certain collectors need you to get for either nefarious or for good type of use that they need to complete some sort of other plot or quest. So keep in mind, you can flavor this a little different, and it doesn't just have to be that, okay, let's go into the dungeon crawl and just get ourselves killed going down the dungeon hole. Um, Basically, the characters find a treasure map, but not just a treasure map, but a treasure map to some lost technology or lost art that hasn't been seen on the face of the world for thousands of years and could change the course and better people's lives or make it more of a playland for those who have it. So you can really take this treasure map and tilt it some fun directions. Don't just say, hey, you found a treasure map. That's the way we want to go as a GM because it's easy, but put some real thought into what is at the end of that treasure map. Why do these characters want this treasure map? Like on these pirate campaigns, I love those. There's a treasure map where this lost pirate king or queen was able to unleash this power that made their ship so much faster and so much more impregnable to the navies that would go after it. Now, see, that's a cool idea. Pirates like that. They're like, ooh, shiny. I can make my thing more cool. Or maybe it takes them to a secret plot that undermines the current pirate king or queen who is using the pirate council in a nefarious way. See, there's ways you can take this. or to the puppet master behind the king or queen of that council, the captain's council. See, you can do some different things. Or maybe to this demon cult or daemon cult that is trying to warp and use the pirate council in ways that it didn't even think, and that they're under the guise of Lady Besmara or oh my gosh, Timora, or some of these others that are really cool deities for those type of campaigns, or Callistria. I'm giving you some ones out of Pathfinder and D&D just because they're kind of fun, or maybe Bocob has something to do to it. So there's so many different ways you can take that. Keep that in mind, that when you create that, really flesh it out and take some deep, deep plot twist to it. You are hired to guard this merchant and his merchant caravan, but make it so much more than that. This merchant is going to be trading a rare spice or herb or medicinal thing that could really save the region and make it a better place and a healthier place. So getting through is so important while these other consortiums are trying to steal it, or these other bandit lords are trying to steal it and hold people hostage and smuggle it. These are the cool ideas. Or maybe you're infiltrating to do it yourself. So you as a group are infiltrating the guard group in order to bring greater wealth and control to the consortium that you're a part of. See where we're going with this one? Lots of fun ideas. But don't just let it rest on, okay, you're guards in a merchant caravan. Underwater exploration. Here's one for you. Forgotten and sunken cities, like the Atlantises, or other types of empires that had cities that were once a part of things. On Pathfinder, that has to do with the Sodden lands, where all these sunken cities are, and what is to be found from these seers that was lost when the flooding occurred of this area. Or what hidden knowledge or what hidden treasures are there that could be found that are so unique. Or maybe there's a key to building a new empire out of the ashes of the old one, and you're going to be a part of an empire building campaign. So you can mesh two together, an underwater campaign and an empire building campaign. Kapow! Come together into one fun, tightly knit theme. There's a lot of draws to this. How about the Winter Fae and Summer Fae, the side he aspect of things? One Fae opposes another, and maybe you choose that your characters are on one side or another, enlisted as mercenaries to one side or another to help tilt the balance. Or maybe you're there to restore the balance due to the war that's going on between them. Again, your Harry Dresden or Dresden File themes. There's some cool stuff that you can really take and build into these type of themes. To protect, maybe you guys are the protectors of a realm or a village or some king or queen or maybe heir apparent, and you are trying to keep them around and alive until they can take the throne, i.e. the Merlin story with Arthur, where he was trying to keep Arthur and raise Arthur Pendragon to be a great leader one day. Or maybe it's a female leader or a matriarchal society where you're trying to instill that vacuum. You're trying to solve that vacuum that's there until that leader takes real maturity and power. So again, there's a lot of social things there that you can bring into play. And I love that, because now you're into social combat. Now you're not outright combat, because that would cause an upheaval in the empire. You're just trying to protect against the assassins and the tarnishing of the reputation of this person long before they've ever taken the throne. Good fun there. A lot of ideas. Spies. You are sent by either a society or a thieves guild or some sort of guild or a consortium or another empire or a rebel group to undermine and find out more information on the current government because of them being a tyranny or being too free or being maybe a chaotic anarchy, and you want to undermine the anarchistic and send it to a law and order type of build. There's so much you can do with that. And there's so many subplots that you can fire off there. Maybe it's you have to do place by place, putting a group into more prominence and power to help to build that into something. Or maybe you're trying to spy to bring groups to your fold that would be helpful to you in order to help your cause to be a reality. And you're trying to build those allies. And again, a lot of social combat, a lot of thinking out of the box, a lot of bribery, a lot of other things that goes on. Maybe you're sneaking into hidden apartments as player characters to find books with knowledge on that person's past so that you can use it to help win them over or against them to bully them into being an ally. Lots you can do there. And again, not at all combat, physical combat campaign, but just as much fun and twists and turns. An investigator. So some sort of rash of crimes, like the Jack the Ripper type of things that are happening. And you are brought in as investigators to track down who's the culprit. But maybe there's not one culprit. Maybe there's many scapegoats that leads to an ultimate sinister force behind it all that is trying to sate its desires or lusts by the deaths and the pain and the suffering of those around. See, that has so much potential to it. And you think about that. Penny Dreadful, very much off of that type of thematic draw, because you just never knew who was really the force behind it all and why were they trying to indulge themselves until the very end. You can do the same with your players. That's where Cthulhu-esque campaigns. So maybe it's some sort of shadow government. So the King in Yellow, or Shub-Niggurath, or some of the others that are there. These are the ones that you can have a lot of fun with. I know Strange Aeons is taking somewhat of a thematic like that. It's I'm not going to give everything away, but it's kind of going into that Lovecraftian type of twisty-turny campaign that could drive you crazy along the way as you figure out what is really the truth. Kind of a cool, macabre campaign. Salvage. Maybe there is something to salvage in this area from a lost empire that is a piece in the cog to making a flying city for somebody, or a flying castle, or airships, or airship trade. So you're kind of a treasure hunter, but you're more of a salvager. You're trying to find pieces along the way that will help you to accomplish that. So a technomancer style campaign. That's always a lot of fun if you run it right. And it can be fueled by magic, but magic using technology along the way so that it really utilizes what's there in front of you to work with things. So there's a lot of themes so far, guys. So even more stuff for you to think on. Let's look at some other ones. An execution. Either one of your allies or somebody is pulled into a harsh situation. Hang on real quick. I got to answer. I'm back. Sorry. Work happens. So the whole executioner idea. So one of the players is condemned to death row, or maybe one of their friends or family member, or maybe it's somebody that you guys are in an organization with, and you're under the time gun to really solve and prove them innocent, or maybe guilty. So it can go two different themes depending on what theme you want to take your players. But the whole idea of either sending a really horrible or good person to execution or saving them is an interesting theme that you can run with. Exploration. So maybe you're going to a lost continent for a reason because you're being sent kind of like the colonists. It's kind of a hard theme because it's real polarized right now with the fact of Native America and Americans who came over and became part of the Americas by force. Again, it goes on, and it's a theme in campaigns. It's up to you whether you want to broach it. Maybe you're the opposing people of being explored. Maybe you're the explorers. And the whole theme is to find a new world to settle, and that you're a part of that, or you're trying to prevent it. Kinslayer. So one of the kindred kills someone who is high in prominence, and you have to find out who and try to deal with the machinations and the fallout that come from that. It's common in rulership throughout history that a kinslayer comes along and takes out one in power, and they could be a benevolent ruler, but they're taken down by the most nasty of nasties. And you can even have the players helping the kinslayer or opposing them. And it can be a social combat, or it can be a real combat, or a mix of both. So there's a lot you can do there with that idea. On the run. So you have escaped an asylum or maybe a prison, and this was a how we roll, how REROLL, that DM Dystress and Spooker and some of the others are a part of, and Gorbad, he's running it. They're escaping a prison ship to try to seek their revenge afterwards. First they must escape, and then they're on the run, and then they're dealing with things as they go along. Maybe it's an unjust imprisonment. Maybe it was a just one. Maybe you guys are psychotic. But there's a lot of ways you can take that theme and just the whole idea that they're on the run from something. And I love the prisons, the asylums. Maybe their memory is not there, and they're trying to remember who they were or who they are. And they're trying to piece it all together, and some force doesn't want them to know for some reason, but yet they're trying to overcome the different obstacles that will bring back their memory and piece back who they are and what their real purpose is. Fun one there. The strange child. So the strange mystical child comes along, and maybe it's an orphan, maybe it's someone from a monastery, maybe it's someone that you found while out, traveling to a town. Who is this strange child? Why are they there? What is their purpose? Are the players there to oppose their purpose or to help their purpose? Why are they where they are? Who is following them? What's really going on? All those questions and ideas that you can take from that can be quite fun. Remember The Golden Child with Eddie Murphy? Perfect example of that type of situation. Or The Medallion, another perfect one. So there's several different ways you can take the mysterious child theme. A political battle. So maybe your characters are trying to rise in politics or local politics and prominence. Or maybe someone else is, and they are the wards of them or servants of them or mercenaries, and they're trying to help that political element to gain ground in an empire. That can go on for a long time. It can be quite fun. A prophecy. So some prophecy has come to pass involving the players, and they must either embrace the prophecy and try to find out what the real prophecy is trying to do, or oppose it. So there's different ways you can take a prophecy. And the neat part is it can be quite open-ended. Some people feel like, okay, you're railroading your players. No, you're not. Just because a prophecy is there, all it is a clue and a hint into what could come. And the great different directions you can take that just are unlimited. And you can do little pieces of the prophecy as they go along. And depending on which path they take, takes them to a different part of the prophecy as it morphs itself to follow them. So keep that in mind. Very fun way of taking things. A little knowledge. Maybe the players are given a hint at some secret knowledge. Maybe it's knowledge that can unlock keys to questions of what happened and how an empire was forged, or why it was really forged, or how it was forged. Or maybe it's knowledge to something profound in a discovery, or maybe it's knowledge to a lost religious prophecy, or anti-theistic prophecy, where the gods were not as benevolent as they seemed. See, there's a lot of ways you can take that little bit of knowledge. And it's just a little knowledge idea, but you're taking that knowledge and taking it some direction. Keep that in mind. Maybe it is planet hopping. Why? Because maybe some secret alien race has control over a country or a part of the world. And your players are trying to find out what their ultimate goals are and why are they there. And why are they either influencing or not influencing what goes on? Are they simply watchers, or are they something more and more nefarious, or something more benevolent? Again, players can take that different places, and the great part is you can jump different worlds. So you're going world to world to world, and you're doing world jumps. So they're, in a sense, traveling to different parts of the universe, trying to figure out why and what. Maybe you find a lost ship that was buried, and you want to find out where it was from, and that ship has knowledge that takes you from place to place to place to give you its true origin. And maybe it's something really cool for the world, or something horrific. Let's look at this one. I kind of like this one a lot more, the Revenant. So there is an avenging spirit, a revenant, that is trying to seek out um, justice or revenge on maybe someone or something, or a party member whose family had wronged it. And so the party is drawn into finding out what is the ultimate purpose of the revenant. What different beings and elements is it going to use to get its revenge? And how driven and why is it driven? And what is really behind the revenant? Is it the revenant that's the end game? Or is it something deeper? And so again, you keep this unfolding plot that you're always working with the players. And there's a lot of directions. It could simply just be the revenant. And the players are jumping 50 directions to find out what else is puppet mastering it. And it's just the revenant. But the revenant is always out of reach, and it continues to return no matter how many times the party slays it. More powerful each time. A lot of ways you can take that one, and a lot of fun goals. Maybe it's a festival. So you're going to a festival, this amazing festival you've never been to before. You've heard so much about the festival. But at the festival, there's a carnival of things. Things weird. Things secret. And all of a sudden, people start going missing. What's going on? Is the carnival the reason? Is the festival? Is there something behind the festival? Is it a god or goddess or fae? What is causing the disappearances? And how can the party figure this out before the festival reaches its height or closure? A lot of fun you can do with that. And a festival can go on for many, many, many different parts of the world. So maybe the players don't solve it by the time it leaves this city for the next. But at some point, the players have to figure it out. Otherwise, it's going to destroy many cities, and many people will go missing. And can they be freed and return to what the life they had? Or will they be a lost soul that will haunt the party? Fun things there. A menagerie. So collected creatures have escaped this collector's menagerie, and the players must go after each one being more unique and bizarre. Maybe it's outer-worldly creatures. Maybe it's mythical beasts, or mythical heroes, or villains, or murderers. The menagerie. I love that idea. That one you can go so much because you're taking your players in steps. And again, it doesn't always have to be combat that beats these creatures. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's a secret riddle that you have to answer. Maybe it's something that you have to find to entrap them again. Look at it this way. It doesn't have to always be bloodshed in every session. From beyond. So there's a powerful force from beyond that has begun to make its way back into the reality of the prime material plane. What is it doing and why? What is its real purpose in materializing? Maybe it materializes in stages, and it leads to something more secret or concerning. Maybe it's a harbinger that is warning of what will come, or something that will follow it, or maybe of another dimension or reality where things were destroyed And now that reality is beginning to leak into your reality. So many plots and twists. It's kind of like the Strange Things twist. So again, these are some ideas. I've given you about 35 minutes of them. There are so many more. Look at page 52 to 53, which gives you the plots and the plots twists and the quest items. I'm giving you some from my own imagination. This is from my own well. And you can take these ideas, even these same ones, and go total different directions. And so my thing is, don't use the same one back to back, but intersperse things. That's why I love going to the adventure paths from Paizo and from some of these others. I'll take a module a lot of times and I'll twist it to one of my plot twists. And it makes it more fun. That way then you can play that whole adventure path again and never have the same outcome. And that's something as a GM, keep that in mind. You can play the same adventure path like Rise of the Ruin Lords 70 times and it never have the same twist. It's all in how you as the GM puts the plot together. And so keep that in mind as you're doing these things and keep those creative juices going. And I hope this really helps. I know it's been a while since I've done a GM's tip, and I know this is a little bit long. I hope it's well worth your time. Keep it in your drawer of places to go for plots and ideas. And think of other ones on top of this and keep adding to it. The great part is you can add and post under the video what other things you think would be great plot twists. And that's great little cache of ideas that we all can use and draw from. Thanks again. I appreciate your viewing in and you guys following me. Thank you so much for the great comments and constructive critiques. Keep it coming. Please tune in to my many podcasters that I've mentioned. Also look at Twitch TV. There's several different people on Twitch TV that have shows like Baphomet. I think Chaotic Anarchy and Dakeen have started some things out of Twitter. I know that DM Deistress is going to be doing both a podcast and maybe some things also out on YouTube, so keep her tuned in. She's on How We Roll right now, so give her a lot of love and support there. Gosh, so many others. Basement Heroes, Steel Empire, love David. He's got some great ideas. He's a great guy and just a super individual and a geek dad. Go Geek Dads. And Amira, his daughter, Amara's daughter, so wonderful souls. She's such a fun DM that takes her brethren and sisters and friends on all kinds of fun little adventures. So keep those folks in mind. Tune into their shows. Get great ideas. That's the key thing as a GM. Exploding Dice with Ask Ren. Keep him in mind. Keep the whole group that follows that. It's Encounter Roleplay, I think, is the group. Keep them in mind. So there's a lot of resources out there. Just keep pulling to those resources and helping yourself to get better and better each day. Thanks again.